Happen to be watching QSportsTalk.com. You'll see our next guest live and in person. Pleased to be joined by the offensive coordinator and the associate head coach of the Orange, Pat March, joining us. And this is the time of year I know you guys all look forward to. It's May. It's NCAA tournament time, Coach. How you guys feeling heading into the tourney?
I think the guys are excited, to be back since first time since 2021. I think there's a lot of excitement about the game on Sunday night.
We had Gary on Bridge Street this morning, and, he mentioned that, guys might be a little bit nervous. There's not a whole lot of tourney experience with the exception of, your two transfers from Princeton. Mason Cone played at Tufts. I mean, there's a little bit of tourney experience sprinkled in, but as you said, this is really a brand new experience for a majority of your roster. As coaches, how do you handle that? How do you get them ready to play Sunday night and, try to treat it like it's any other game? I know it's not any other game. They know it's not any other game, but how do you try to take some of the pressure off them this time of year?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just focusing on the play that's happening in that moment. And when you focus on that play and then that play's over and focus on the next play, and if you stay really kind of involved in that process and what's really happening in the game, you don't really kind of worry about too much more than that. The score will take care of itself if everybody does their job and executes the way they're supposed to.
Number 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. From an offensive perspective, you guys are 6th in the country right now in terms of goals per game, just under 15 goals per contest. How would you kind of assess the regular season, Coach, as a whole as you get ready now for the postseason?
Yeah, I think we learned a lot about ourselves throughout the year. We play a tough schedule here at Syracuse. So offensively, we're playing against a lot of the top defenses in the country, and then defensively, we're playing against a lot of the top offenses in the country. So I just think putting ourselves in different positions throughout the season, you learned, hey, this is how we handle this. Hey, this is how we handle that. So hopefully all that stuff that we learned throughout the season can help us on Sunday night.
You mentioned the tough schedule. You guys have played all the best teams. I mean, Notre Dame's 1, Duke's 2, Hopkins 3. You've played them all. How much does that help, not just physically as you get ready for the tournament, but I would assume that helps mentally as well, the guys knowing that they've played the best and you're not going to see anybody better than Notre Dame, right? I mean, how much does that help from a mental approach?
I think it's huge, and especially this time of year. I mean, the NCAA tournament, only 17 teams make it in college lacrosse. So everyone this time of year is really good and really solid. The Towson team we're going to play is an exceptional one for sure. So being able to say that we've played what is considered to be some of the top teams and a lot of other tournament teams that are made the tournament is huge. It's huge for confidence.
I know the ultimate goal is to win a national title, make it to the Final Four, win a national title. And somewhere along the way, if you do that, you're going to have to face adversity, right? You're going to be down at halftime, or you're going to need to get a big face-off in the fourth quarter, or what have you. You guys have shown the ability to win different ways this year. You go back to the first Duke game, and it was a defensive battle that day. Defensively, you guys were carried with a 10-4 win. You've had other games like the Virginia game where you outscored your opponent. How much does that help? The fact that you're not just a one-trick pony, that you guys can win different kinds of games. I would imagine that probably helps this time of year.
Yeah, I think it's huge. If we're struggling on the offensive side of the ball, I think the defense picks it up for us. If we happen to be struggling on the defensive end, the offense picks it up. And I think we really do play complementary lacrosse as to kind of how the game kind of falls and rolls out as you start to get the feel for it after the first quarter and into the second quarter. So I really think there's a lot of trust between both the offense and defense, and then trust in our specialists and face-off and goalies. So I think it's absolutely huge that we've won games in different ways.
We talk about the fact that there's probably a little bit of pressure on you guys this weekend. It feels like your opponent doesn't have any pressure, right? They're the underdog. They come to town with really nothing to lose. They can score a lot of goals. We've seen that. They're 7th in the country in scoring offense, 14.5 per game. Haven't played the same schedule, obviously. But what stands out to you about this opponent as you get ready to play Towson on Sunday night?
Yeah, they've won 9 games in a row. They won the CAA, so they're conference champions there. So it's a team that's had a lot of success recently. They're also very solid all over the field. You mentioned the stats. They're 16th in offensive efficiency. They're 7th in defensive efficiency. They're very good in the goal. They have a great face-off guy. So they're pretty well-rounded as well. And I think you're going to see a team come in and try and compete and try and knock us off for sure. I think that we're going to get a very tough game here on Sunday night.
If you guys are to make the Final Four, you're going to have beaten two teams that you didn't see during the regular season. Do you like going up against new competition this time of year, or would it be, easy? Well, I don't want to say easier because nothing's easy this time of year, but would you prefer to, take on an opponent that you've already scouted, that, you're familiar with, you played against them? Would that be easier for you guys this time of year?
It's a great question. I think all of the coaching staff here is avid lacrosse fans, so we may not have scouted the opponents that we may have, but definitely watching lacrosse, every Saturday and Sunday when we're not at practice, and during the week in the evenings when there's games and we're not playing. So familiar with a lot of the teams, familiar with a lot of the staffs across the country, a lot of the coaches. So I'm not really sure whether either one way or the other. Unfortunately, this time of year, you get what you get. So, if we play well enough to move on Sunday night, then, we'll see who the next opponent is and we'll prepare for them.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's good this time of year, right? I mean, you wouldn't be in the tournament if you're not good. Along those lines, would you, when this is kind of off topic, but would you favor expansion? I know there's a lot of good teams who didn't make the tournament. Like, Cornell, we're here in Central New York. Cornell is among those teams that, they didn't get in. Would you be in favor of the tournament expanding a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to see it expand. I think it would help the growth of the sport, and lacrosse is an extremely growing sport and fast growing across the country. It's played, there's a lot of high school players out there. So seeing more colleges represented and growth in different places start new programs would be great. And then I think only the addition of NCAA tournament teams and kind of seeing what could happen for a school is going to help growth at both the Division I level, and then obviously growth in the tournament, I think, helps with all of that.
All right, Pat, last question for you. What does this game come down to on Sunday? I would imagine it's probably more about you than the opponent, right? I mean, what do you guys need to focus on to get this thing done?
Yeah, I think fundamentals is a big piece. This time of year, you really fall back on your fundamentals and making sure you're doing everything right. You have good discipline between the lines and riding and clearing. You execute and you do your job and really play with great effort. Everyone is kind of in the same situation where if it doesn't go their way and they lose the game, they're going home. So everybody plays extremely hard. So being able to, have a lot of effort and push really hard, I think is a big piece too.
Coach, it's always a pleasure having you on to talk some lacrosse. I know it's a busy time for you. Thanks for finding a few minutes for us. Best of luck on Sunday night. Keep it going. Hopefully we're still talking Cuse lacrosse next week as well.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Hope to see you next week.
All right, Pat March, offensive coordinator, associate head coach of the SU men's lacrosse team. Paulie,
I hope we see him next week too, Steve.
I do. I really. I love the coaches on this staff.
I get so frustrated with Twitter. It doesn't matter what sport. It's so negative, and it's even in lacrosse.
Yeah,
like there's a vocal amount of people on social media that aren't happy right now, and this game is super important. I don't know if winning against Townsend will satisfy those people. It might take a little bit more. But this is as important of a game as they've had in a long time.
I would agree with you. And, I mean, Tim alluded to that when we had him on, that, it's a situation where if you lose this game, is it going to be looked at as a successful season? Probably not.
No.
But the players and coaches are aware of that, and they would say the same thing.
Is a win enough, though?
I mean, as Tim mentioned, if they don't make it to the Final Four, it's going to feel like a disappointment, I think, because they, now you look at their bracket, you say, okay, they're favored, right? But I think if they win an NCAA tournament game, and even if they were to lose in the quarterfinals, it would still feel like a step forward, even though they're disappointed they didn't make it.
And I don't think the average fan wants to take the baby step process they want to go from
Right.
worst to first,
Yeah.
or whatever,
Right.
So it's tough, but it's silly to me. I got to stop looking at Twitter, but it's my job to read Twitter.
I think if they make the Final Four, that question
would be awesome.
That question that everybody keeps asking is Syracuse lacrosse back? I would feel like a Final Four would feel like, okay, we can put that question to bed now.
It kind of feels like also, I don't know if you remember the early 80s of the Jim Boeheim era, where it was can't win
the big one.
Yeah, and the
sure.
big one.
After the Richmond game, that really became a thing.
Yeah, well, it was before that, losing to Navy.
No, I know, right, yeah.
He couldn't get past the second round.
Right.
So, yeah. So it's kind of that thing. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And it's almost unfair to judge this coaching staff.
Yes, it's growing.
On that, as Gary said this morning on Bridge Street, this is essentially year 2. I mean, the first year was a transition, and it almost can't be counted, on this coaching staff's resume. Then they get their style of play in, they get their system, they get their guys, and so this is really year 2, and it does feel like they're ahead of schedule. That they could very well go to a Final Four or beyond this year. All right, let's take a timeout. Worst song bracket coming up next.
You're
Mike
awfully in a rush.
McAllister.
You're in
at
an
1
awful
o'clock.
rush to get to this.
Oh, I can't wait.
This is basically a Final Four matchup.
We're on to round
Steve.
2. It's
It's
so
a
exciting.
huge matchup, right? Don't you think this could have potentially been a Final Four matchup? Don't say who it is.
Okay.
But look at it. Look at
Yeah, I
it.
see
Look
it.
at it
I
at
see it.
paper.
Yeah,
Would you
on
agree with
paper,
me?
this is a marquee matchup.
Yeah,
I
it
will
is.
agree with that.
Like this would be the 8:00 p.m. game in the NCAA tournament on CBS.
Oh, great tease. All right, we'll do that next. Mike McAllister, 1 o'clock. Jason Belzer from Student Athlete NIL coming up at 1:30. Back after this on ESPN Radio.